Good morning. Time for the Sue Ellen Sanders Show on WPSL and WSTU. Good morning, Sue Ellen.
Good morning and welcome to the show. I'm so glad you all are joining me today. We'll be talking about things that are going on the Treasure Coast as we do every week, and about issues and about conversations and about people, and especially about nonprofit organizations. And when we talk about events, I like to talk about things that are near and dear to me or things I want to learn more about. And my next guest, Rosemary Knight, is the co-founder of Treasure Coast Theater, and it is the only community theater in Port Saint Lucie, not on the Treasure Coast, because there's the barn and there's the Pineapple and there's other ones, but the only one in Port Saint Lucie. And Rosemary founded it right before COVID hit, wasn't it?
About 9 months before COVID hit.
So great timing to have a theater, a small, intimate community theater. And I know the first show that I went to see there, which was fantastic, by the way, but everybody in the audience was wearing masks. And I know when you had rehearsals, all the actors were wearing masks as well. So you've come a long way. Let's talk about those early days of theater, of your theater.
Okay. Well, you know, it was a dream of mine to have a theater. I've been involved in theater most of my life. Actually majored in it at the early part of my college years, and then switched over to business and psychology. But it was always something I wanted to do, and it allowed me to basically do shows that I've always wanted to do, but maybe other theaters didn't want, and just stretch my creative juices, I guess if you want to call it, and I've been able to do that. I've been able to put on shows that either other theaters wouldn't do for one reason or another, or that I've always loved. And yes, it was actually the first, I don't know what you'd call it, maybe 10 shows that we did were fairly successful. It was a great start to a theater. And I guess it filled a need that, because of where it is, it's right on US 1 in Port St. Lucie. So we did really well for the that first 10 months. And then, oops, sorry. Okay. And then COVID hit. So, you plan for so many things, but the one thing I never planned for was a global pandemic. So that was fun. So we were down for, I guess, 15 months, and then, restarted in the summer of 21. But it was slow going for a good almost a year, because audiences weren't necessarily coming. And yeah, we would wear masks when we were rehearsing. We would take COVID tests. We weren't wearing masks during the performances, but we had a nice safe distance from the audience. But we were requiring audience members to wear masks at least until like February or March of 22. And that created an issue with some people. But we're not doing that anymore. People are wearing them voluntarily. Every performance, we see some people wearing masks, some not. But it's gradually come back. But it was tough there for a little while.
I'll bet. And one of the pluses about Treasure Coast Theater is, as you described your location, you're in the Bell's Shopping Center, just north of US 1. No, just north of Port St. Lucie Boulevard off US 1. So, it's something easy to get to for everybody in Port St. Lucie and for people in Stewart too. But it is in the shopping center, and you redesigned the shopping center space to fit a theater. And that in itself, I remember we were talking when you first were about to open the theater, and you had many challenges with that with
Yes.
just renovating the theater and getting it open on a timely basis.
Yep.
So
Yeah,
you could.
it took about 7 months from signing the lease to opening. All the red tape, with dealing with the county and the city and the state, and it was challenging. But yeah, I had actually designed the space because it's so small, and worked with the architects and the contractors to get it in there. And I mean, it's a decent space. We have 54
Mhm.
seats. The stage is a good sized stage. I mean, it is a small, intimate stage. It's nothing like, some of the bigger theaters, but we've been able to do quite a few productions on that stage. So, and we are completely ADA compliant. Because it was built in 2019. We had to abide by all the most updated fire regulations and ADA regulations. So we have a ramp. Our hallways to the bathrooms are wider than most other theaters because of the new regulations. Our bathrooms are bigger
Mhm.
because they need to accommodate wheelchairs. So we have two ADA compliant bathrooms. The entire front row, while all the other seats are bolted to the floor, and they go up, they grade up.
Right.
The whole front row, the seats can be pulled out and can accommodate 4 wheelchairs. So
So
yeah, so
especially, yeah, especially if you're looking for a place to take people, and part of your party is wheelchair bound, it's really an
mhm,
ideal situation.
yep. Yeah. I mean, and we've had that. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, but we have performances where we had 4 wheelchairs in that front row.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen frequently, but it does happen.
So you've been back in business now for a
Mhm.
couple of years, and
Yep.
each season it seems that your shows get more exciting and more challenging. And you are right
Yes,
in the middle of, well, you're at the beginning of your new season, but
correct.
and we're going to talk about the season itself, but I want to make sure we get right to the show that is currently on stage
Mhm.
at the Pineapple Playhouse, excuse me,
Nope, nope.
Glitch. No,
Treasure
the
Coast.
Treasure Coast Theater on
Uh-huh.
US 1. Yeah. Um,
Mhm.
and it is called Next to Normal. And
Mhm.
it's the first musical that I ever saw that made me realize that musicals don't always make you laugh, that sometimes they make you
Correct.
cry.
Correct. Yes, it is a powerful musical. It is about mental health. I want to put that out there right away. But it's more than that. It's about a family.
Mm.
It's about family dynamics, and it deals with a whole lot of issues, and just how a family connects with each other through crisis. And you can't. I mean, yeah, there are a lot of places in the show that you will cry, and you will feel. It is a show you feel through. But it's not all tears. There are some
Oh,
funny
no,
moments.
yeah.
There's a lot of moments, just like in life. I mean, I don't think it would be incredibly depressing if all you did, even with dramas, if there isn't some levity and some
Mhm.
humorous moments in the most serious dramas. And just like the most serious dramas, this does have a lot. It has some humor in it, and so you will laugh, you will feel, you will cry. But the songs themselves, this show won. It was nominated for 11 Tonys. It won 3, and one of them was for the score. It is one of the most, well, you've seen it, so it is one of the most beautiful
It
scores.
it is.
Um, and I say this, I joke about this because I've been going to the rehearsals. The songs are looping in my head, and not in a bad way.
Mhm.
Like they're
No,
such
they're still
memorable.
looping in my head, and I haven't seen
Yes.
it for a year.
Yeah, I mean, it is a beautiful score. It's beautiful, it's powerful, um, and it makes you feel. And we have an amazing cast, and I wish I had somebody with me today, but the funny part about the cast is that the cast, well, first of all, it's directed by my daughter, Samantha Knight, who is a drama teacher at Jupiter High School. And three of our cast members are also teachers who teach either drama, chorus, or some performing arts.
Mhm.
So they're very familiar with musical theater, but they're all in school because school, I don't know if it started today or yesterday, school just started.
Yeah.
So they are teaching currently, so they couldn't be here. But yeah, so we have an amazing cast there, and it's really been collaborative, where everybody has added not just their singing talents and their acting talents, but also their expertise. So there's been a lot of collaboration. Okay, what if we do it this way? And so they've really added a lot to the show, and it's really great.
Well,
Um,
there's a lot of parts that where the same characters, it's a small cast actually,
yes, six
considering,
characters, six
yes.
actors.
And they all have big roles, and
Mhm.
there's a lot of emotional ups and downs for every single character. My
Correct.
personal
The
favorite, go on.
No, well, the cast is made up of, well, the characters. It's the family, the nuclear family, the Diana and Dan, who are the parents, Gabe and Natalie, who are the children. And then Henry, who is Natalie's
Love
love
interest.
interest.
Yes.
And then we have one character who is actually several characters.
All the leftover
Dr.
people.
Matt, excuse me?
All the
It's
leftover
Dr.
people.
Madden. Yeah, Dr. Madden, so there's one actor who plays several doctors.
Mm.
So yeah, and each doctor's a little different. But yeah, and each person has a lot going on. And you had
What
something you wanted to add.
Yeah, no, I wanted to just mention that the one song that plays as a loop in my head, and part of it is just because it's on part of my running tunes log, is Superboy and the Invisible Girl.
Mhm.
And
Oh yeah.
when you're in the middle of the show, you understand exactly the meaning of the song, but just as a parent, you realize that when you have multiple children, you want to love them all equally, but
Correct.
it doesn't always happen that way for some reason or another. And
Mhm.
uh, that song made me think so much about, treating our children uh, with equality and not necessarily equally. Um,
Correct.
and
Yeah, and that exactly. Because yeah, that whole concept of, you know, i- sometimes when one child is less trouble than the other child or isn't as vocal as the other child, that child becomes the invisible girl, the invisible boy.
Mhm.
And the parents don't mean to do that, but sometimes it happens. And yeah, and that song resonates with a lot of people.
Oh, so it's not just me.
No.
No, but
I experienced it as a young person. I was the good student, and I had an older brother who was always trouble, and he got all the attention and I didn't, because I was the good kid who was doing well in school, and we'll just leave her alone because she's doing well. So
yeah.
parents don't so I think, yeah, so that's a song that I think a lot of people can relate to, and not necessarily in the context of mental health per se.
No, it's just normal living. What are some of the
Mhm.
other songs that are part of this musical that people might recognize?
Um, let's see. I'm Alive is another one that I think a lot of people have heard. It's Just an Ordinary Day, which actually is a great song because it just talks about, all of the trials of every day.
Yeah.
They talk about, making sandwiches and going to school, and I forgot what the line that I can't not remember the line that the father says, but it's just they're just talking about just making it through an ordinary day. And that's a great song too. And then I'm trying to think of some of the other ones that are really well known. But I think I'm Alive is probably
It's
one of the
probably,
ones.
and it's a frequent audition song too, because if a
Yes,
guy wants to showcase his voice, it's a great opportunity to do that.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Also, as far as the show goes, the way the set is, it's almost like you are right there in the middle of that family.
Mhm.
To use a comparison, it's like a Barbie house where
Yes,
the whole side is open and you're seeing all of the Barbies inside and moving them.
correct.
That's the way it is for the audience. I think you're right inside that family and you're looking,
Correct.
you're part of it.
Well, one of the unique things about our set, we are actually really truly doing it as a black box, and where there's no real furniture. Um, we're actually using black boxes to represent different things on the set. And I've seen it on stage elsewhere as well. There is no real set because there were so many different locations for the show that you have to use your imagination as to where we are, because there's a lot of things that are happening in the house, but it's in the kitchen, in the living room, in the bedroom, this person's bedroom, that person's bedroom, the front porch. But then you're in the doctor's, you're in the hospital, you're at the school, you're at the doctor's office. There's all these other locations that you have to improvise and you have to use your imagination that they're there. So, and we kind of do that with lights and just
Right.
movement.
Well, the times I've seen it before, and the time that my son Jake directed it when it was at the Lyric Theater, they used just a simple scaffolding. So there was not a lot of set other than that scaffolding, and then they used the light to point to different areas where the people
Correct.
would be. So it's the same kind of idea, but the thing is, like you said, it makes it even more intimate. The show itself is intimate. You feel like you've got an inner opportunity to see what's going on, and some of the dialogue and some of the songs are the characters' inner dialogue.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, it's almost considered a rock opera. Although, and I hate using that term, but it's very contemporary music. But and a lot of, I mean, there is dialogue. There is plenty of dialogue, but there a lot of that, as you said, a lot of that dialogue is in the songs themselves.
It's also very challenging music. So
yes, it is.
Find volunteers, a cast of 6 who can sing those roles on the Treasure Coast is awesome. Let's talk about some of the people that are in it.
Okay. Our 2 lead characters, Diana and Dan, Trina Pye, and Scott Laird. Trina has done a lot of work on the Treasure Coast. She's done a lot of shows, I think, with just about every theater, and she's directed. And she's also a theater teacher at I think it's Tradition High School, or Centennial High School in Port Saint Lucie. But she's got a phenomenal voice, and the ranges that she has to go to for Diana are just amazing. And then Scott Laird is also a teacher. I think, yes, I always get those backwards.
He's at Tradition. Yeah, he's my buddy.
He's at Tradition Prep.
Yeah, he's been
also
on the show a lot.
Yes. He hasn't acted in a while, but he also an amazing voice, very strong, a great actor. They're both phenomenal in leading the show. The 2 kids, the role of Gabe is being played by Alex Martinez, who has done quite a bit on the Treasure Coast. I'm trying to think of I think the last show that I actually saw him in, he was in Rent over at the barn. He actually played, I forgot the name of the character, but it's the filmographer. For some reason, the name of the character is escaping me, but he has an amazing voice and also a great actor. And pulling off gay songs, he's got amazing songs, and it's very challenging. And the other child, her name is Elizabeth Linehart. And I love Elizabeth. I've known Elizabeth since she was 10 years old. She is now 19. I met her at the Barnes summer camp. She was a little girl at the summer camp. And my kids had been very involved as counselors. And then and my daughter Samantha both, I ran the camp there for a couple of years, and she assisted me. And I could see Elizabeth's talent, like from when she was 10. She is amazing. She pulls off Natalie just unbelievably. And then rounding out the cast, Chris Ketchum, who's again a teacher at Renaissance Charter School. He's the doctor, and he's also very good.
Mary Ann Ketchum's son.
Yes.
You know, Mary Ann, right? Yes. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And I joke with Chris because he has done every August show that we've had the past 3 years. He's our August actor.
Yes.
He's been in the 3 consecutive August shows. Yeah, he was in Kitchen Witches last year, and then the year before he was in 5 Women wearing the same dress. So this is his 3rd consecutive August show. And then rounding out the cast is a young man named Jason Shader. He's very new. He's I can't remember if he's 16 or 17, and he actually just played the lead role in Lost in Yonkers for us. He was Jay in Lost in Yonkers. So he's doing 2 shows in a row, and he's got just that personality and that sweet voice to pull off Henry. So yeah, we've got a great cast. I'm really proud of them.
So I'm so excited about this show coming up. And actually, so you kicked off the opening weekend, was it last weekend?
No, we open this Friday.
Okay, it opens on Friday. So this show runs on Saturday morning and Sunday morning.
It runs Friday night, Saturday night,
right? But
and then Sunday afternoon.
This radio show. So when people are listening to it, when you're listening to this radio show, it's either Saturday at 7 a.m. or Sunday at 7 a.m. So that means time traveling that the show will have opened on Friday night, the night before.
Correct.
And then it runs Friday night and Saturday night and Sunday.
Correct. Sunday afternoon. The show runs about 2.5 hours, give or take, depending on intermission. And it'll be running from August 11th through the 27th. And tickets are $35. But we also have discounts for groups of 10 or more, save $3 off a ticket. Obviously, if people want to buy season tickets, they save $5 off a ticket. And we also have a student discount. So if you're a student with an ID, you only pay $15.
Wow, that's great.
So yeah.
And people can buy tickets can they buy them online, or do they have to go to the box office?
Nope, absolutely. I mean, if you need to buy a student ticket, yeah, you're going to need to call the phone or come in and get them, because that's a special pricing and you can't just order student tickets. But in terms of just regular tickets, you just go on our website, treasurecoasttheater.com, and theater is TRE, not TER. And you buy the tickets right there. Or you can call the number, which is 772-418-2439, and we can take care of it over the phone.
So as we continue on the radio, what I'm going to be talking about with Rosemary is not just the rest of the season, because Next to Normal is the kickoff of the season, and but also what's to come in the future. And we'll talk a little bit about who can come out to try out for shows, because your actors and singers and musicians on stage are people that are from the Treasure Coast community. And
Correct.
sometimes they're people who have been performing a long time. Sometimes they're people who just want to do this and they've never done it before, but they would be really good at it. And
Absolutely.
Rosemary, you all do a good job balancing, different types of shows. So, some shows like you did the show that had oh, what was the name of it with all the guys?
Oh, A Few Good Men.
You Good Men, yes. And
With a lot of guys.
yeah, you needed a whole lot of guys to do that. And then you have musicals, and then you have dramas, and you just have a variety of things. And Rosemary, I know that you've been doing theater for a long time. As a matter of fact, you and I first got to know each other when we were doing a show on stage at Pineapple Playhouse, which is a community theater over in Fort Pierce. And that relationship that you get when whether you're somebody who's experienced that does shows all the time, or someone that's a novice, it's a different kind of relationship than when you just are hanging out with somebody. It's more heightened, I think.
Correct. Well, you spend a lot of time with those people. When we rehearse a show, we try not to overwhelm people. Generally, we rehearse between 2 and 4 days a week. And 4 is on the extreme side. But generally, it's like 3 days a week, maybe 2 hours an evening. The average time is like 7 to 9, although we've done quite a few earlier in the day when people have availability. In fact, next to normal, until a few weeks ago, our rehearsals were from 4 to 6:30 because everyone involved was either a teacher, a student, or had a flexible employment where they could be there by 4 o'clock. So it really depends. And I have done shows where I have worked around people's schedules. One of the last shows we did last season was the Sunshine Boys, where we had several retirees in the show. So we were able to rehearse during the morning. For the main two characters were both retired, and so we were able to rehearse at 9 o'clock in the morning or 11 o'clock in the morning. So we try to be flexible with our cast, but generally speaking, we rehearse in the evenings, and we try to work with people. As you said, we have had show like you mentioned, The Few Good Men. I directed that show, and it was a large cast of 15 people. I think it was 14 men and one woman. And the cast was made up of a variety of people. I had people in the cast that had 20 years experience on stage, and I had several people that had never been on stage before. So and there's a balance there. Obviously with the people that are a little more experienced, you may spend a little less time working with them. And with the people that are less experienced, you spend a little more time. So and they feed off of each other. The more experienced people help the less experienced people. So it's a great dynamic.
Well, you also have got the less experienced people who can bring a fresh outlook to
Absolutely.
something new. So something you might not expect. And there's also all ages too.
Absolutely.
Because if you say you're casting for a certain age range, you're talking about a range usually, because you could age somebody with makeup, or you could make them look younger by putting their hair in ponytails,
Correct.
depending
Absolutely.
on what the role calls for. So let's talk a little bit about the rest of your season coming up, because you pick ahead of time the shows at least 1 year in advance.
Yes. So actually, this is our second show of the season. The first one was Lost in Yonkers. That's okay. You wouldn't know that. So Lost in Yonkers was our first show that was in July. And this is our second show. And then our next show is in September. It's the romantic comedy Crossing Delancey. And that runs from September 22nd to October 8th. It was originally a play, but they made it into a very popular Golden Globe award-winning movie.
Yes.
So, and it's a
Amy.
really sweet. Amy Irving
Yeah.
and, oh my God, I forgot the name of the actor who played. I always
Right.
think of him as
Yes.
the guy from Animal House.
Yeah.
But it's a sweet romantic comedy, and that's in September. And then in November, well, September to October. And then in November, we're doing another big male heavy drama, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And in fact, I'm holding auditions for that next Sunday and Monday. So the 20th and the 21st. And I need 12 men and 4 women.
Oh, wow.
And
That's a big
yeah,
gap.
and the men range in ages. There's some, I mean, they could be in their 20s, and the ages are not very specific in the script. So the men could be in their 20s, their 30s, their 40s, their 50s, their 60s. The main female character, Nurse Ratchet, there is no age. It says you really can't tell her age. And then there's another nurse. So there is no, oh, we need somebody who's 20 years old. I think there's only like 2 characters that are young, and not children, but in their 20s. There's a young man Billy Bibbit, who is young, who's an inmate at the insane asylum, and then there's a prostitute who's supposed to be young, but everyone else can be a variety of ages. So we highly recommend people come out and read for that. It's a great show. But that show is in November. And then in December, we're doing a holiday variety show. We're calling it Jingle Bells and Christmas Memories. There'll be singing, there'll be comedy. We'll be holding auditions for that for people of all ages. In January, we're doing a comedy called Nana's Naughty Knickers. It's very funny. February is a show called Love Letters. It's just 2 weekends, and it's 2 people who correspond over their lifetime, who have a sort of like a corresponding romance. In March, we're doing another musical, Bridges of Madison County. In April, we're doing another comedy called The Cemetery Club. In May, another musical review. It's Broadway Through the Ages, where we're going to be highlighting different songs from different musicals of different decades. Let's see, and then we're ending the season with we started with the Neil Simon. We're going to end with the Neil Simon, Barefoot in the Park in June.
So
I think I've covered the whole season.
with this many different shows, when people buy season tickets, they're getting a whole lot for the money.
Yeah, well, you can buy a season ticket package. It's flexible. We're doing 11 shows, and you could buy as few as 5 shows or the whole season. And as long as you buy at least 5 shows, you save $5 off the ticket price.
So you can get
and then
5 shows. Do you have to decide which 5 shows you want?
Yes.
Yes, you do.
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Yeah, you have now you can buy 5, and then if you change your mind on one of the shows and you want to switch it for a different show, you can do that. If you only buy 5, but then you say, hey, you know what, I really love the shows and I want to add all the rest of the shows onto the season, you can do that. And we'll just add the shows at the season pricing.
Great.
But when you buy the package, you really do need to know what shows and what performances you want.
Right, because with this a smaller theater, you have to be able to reserve those actual seats on the nights.
Correct.
Need.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned that you could look up Treasure Coast Theater. You could also follow Treasure Coast Theater on social media, and that way you're getting notice of when auditions are, when the shows are, when season tickets are on sale, when individual tickets are on sale. And you have Facebook, and do you also Instagram?
Yes, Facebook, Instagram, and we also have a YouTube channel. So you can follow us on all 3 things. And we post auditions and information on our website as well. So, but yeah, like I just posted the event on our Facebook page for the auditions. But yeah, so you can follow us on Facebook, on Instagram, and just if you sign up on our email, if you give us your email on our website, then we will also email you information. So anyone who's bought a ticket from us joins our email mailing list, and we email information about the shows as well.
So to prepare for the next audition for the Crossing Delancey, what do people need to bring to the audition? It's not a musical, so you don't need to prepare
No.
a song.
Well, Crossing Delancey's already been cast. That's
Oh,
opening in
okay.
September.
Okay.
It's
Okay.
Cuckoo's Nest, One Flew Over the
Cuckoo's
Cuckoo's
Nest
Nest
is
that
the
we're
next one.
auditioning. And you don't have to bring anything. If people want, I can email them a copy of the script if they want to read it. But basically, it's going to be a cold reading. So I have what we call sides. So they would be scenes that I'm going to be auditioning people with, and I would give them a little description of the character, and let them read the scenes before they audition. But also, as if they're interested, I can also provide a PDF copy of the script for them to look over beforehand. And all they have to do is email.
Should people go into the tryouts with a certain character in mind?
They could, but I mean, honestly, I find sometimes people come in with a certain character in mind, they get very disappointed when they don't get the character, because I mean, everybody wants the lead role. Well, not everybody. Some people want a small role, but
Somebody
but
wants,
like
some
I've
people
already been
want less
told.
lines. Yeah.
Yeah, I've already been told by a couple of people, like, I'm coming and auditioning, but I want this role because I don't want a big part. But like everybody, people who are quote unquote serious about acting or really want to, I mean, every woman is going to want to play Nurse Ratchet, and every man is going to want to play McMurphy. So those are the two lead characters, but there's so many other amazing characters. And so somebody can come and read for McMurphy, but may not get cast as McMurphy. So they might get cast as Scanlon or Martino or one of the other characters. But now I have a challenge, because one of the characters in the show, and I'm going to try to reach far and wide, but there is one character called Chief, who is supposed to be a very large Native American. So that is a challenge, and would like to cast someone who's ethnic. I might not be able to, but that is a challenge that I will have.
Yes. And you go into each of the shows. Let's talk about how you pick the shows, because do you keep in mind the people who regularly try out for your shows when you're picking the following year's shows?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes it's really something that I've always wanted to do, or that a show that I've always loved. And I like to do things that have a lot of variety. So I want to have a balance, and shows that will appeal to people. I can't tell you how many people I've already heard, "Oh, I'm coming out to read for Cuckoo's Nest. I'm going to come out." Some shows just draw people to auditions. And some of the lesser known shows, not so much. So it's more of a, people suggest shows, people want to see shows. There are shows that I've always loved, and so it's a big process. But is it specifically to cast people? Not necessarily. We do try to do more shows that have older casts or female oriented casts, but not always. We try to have a nice balance.
So if people are coming out and they've never tried out before, with your hat as an actor on and not necessarily your hat as a director on, do you suggest that they try out for something small to begin with? Or how on earth can anyone who's not done it before learn a lot of lines?
It's funny you say that because, if you've never done something before, I think you need to be honest with yourself. I mean, do you have a good memory? If you think you have a good memory and you remember things pretty easily, then you know you could try for something bigger. Um, Although there are so many techniques on how to learn lines. I We've seen quite a few people who've never done anything before get cast in large roles and do phenomenally well. And we've seen people who've done shows for 20 years who can't remember their lines. So, so it really, it I wouldn't just like if you really don't know, then maybe say I only want a small role. If you have never done anything before, sure, say, listen, I only want to do. But if you know you have a decent memory, and you are willing to put in the work, then by all means, go for a large role. Um, I'd use a couple of examples of recent shows. The young man I mentioned earlier, who's in Next to Normal, he actually replaced someone in Lost in Yonkers. The original actor had to drop out, and he replaced him 3 weeks before the show opened, and it was a lead role. And he had not done a whole lot. He'd done a couple of shows in school, but he learned an entire script in 3 weeks. Uh, I did almost a year ago. We did Broadway Bound, Neil Simon's Broadway Bound, and two of the actors in that show, one of whom was the lead, had never done anything before, and they learned all those lines. If you have a little bit of confidence and you have a decent memory, go for it. And people, we would help you learn lines. There's so many different techniques on learning lines.
I know that you were telling me earlier a story about last season, where you did a show that was a substitute show because you had to put something in the lineup at the last minute, and it was just a very small cast, and you were
Mhm.
one of the roles. And let's just say all of our memories each year don't necessarily get sharper as far as remembering lines. So how did you handle that, being on stage? For how long were you on stage?
100 minutes.
Yeah.
And
And what was the show?
it was called Walter Cronkite is Dead. And it was two women who are stuck at an airport. There's nowhere to sit. It's completely crowded, people lying all over the floor. And one character had already gotten herself a table at the bistro. And my character, loaded with lots of luggage, is looking for a place to sit and kind of imposes on this woman and sits with her. And it basically this whole dialogue between these two women, and these two women are vastly different. One character, Margaret, is sort of a very, I don't know if you want to call it upper crust, but she's a northern liberal. And I wouldn't even say she's educated, but she's very refined. Whereas my character, I played a blue collar, uh, very conservative woman from Tennessee. And so the personalities clashed and their beliefs clashed. But in the end, they were able to communicate, and honestly, it was a great show because in the very volatile political climate, the show was actually set in 2010, so before the really harsh political climate. But it would be
Polarizing,
nice.
yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice to be back in those days because they were able to communicate with each other and understand each other. And it was a great show. But yeah, it was hard. My character was a fast-talking Tennessean who, it was the joke was she couldn't stay quiet for 2 minutes. So I was talking constantly. I just have a very good, I mean, I hate saying that, but I do have a very good memory, even at my advanced age. And So I was able to learn lines. It was hard. We only had 5 weeks to rehearse the show. And but it was fun. I mean, and if you apply yourself the key to really learning the lines is really understanding what you're saying and really absorbing it. And I think that, like, just like if you're reading a book, if you're really into the book, you'll remember it. And
Right.
so understanding the character, I think, is really the key, understanding what you're saying. Because some people just learn and they don't really understand what they're saying. And as a director, that's one thing that I have done with people. I directed a show in the spring called Proof, where the man was supposed to be a math professor. So, and the young man who was playing the character really didn't understand a lot of the stuff that he was talking about. And I actually directed him to go read about what he was talking about. And and when he did that, he understood and he learned his lines a lot better because he understood what he was talking
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important to really absorb what it is that you're saying.
The other thing that I think is a challenge for people is an accent. A lot of
Mhm.
times, a show will be set in the deep South, or you have to play like you did a Tennessean or somebody from the North, or everybody in the cast has English accents. What's the best
Mhm.
way to deal with that?
Well, number one, I don't think we have a whole lot of shows this season that are very specific to a location. So coming up, I think pretty much everything is, I don't know, mid-America that's coming up. But yeah, when we have shows where people have to have a certain accent, we try to help them with those accents, or we do cast people who can pull off those accents. Um, I happen to be good at accents. So I have played everything, like I've actually in the past 2 or 3 years have played women from 4 different areas of the South. So, and it's funny because like Tennessee is very different from Texas, was very
Right.
different from the Mississippi Delta.
Yeah.
And I have played somebody from each of those areas. And what I find is when I start rehearsing a show, the previous character comes out until I really start delving into the dialogue, and then the new accent comes out. Because I was actually rehearsing, we were doing a show called the Savannah Sipping Society. Oh, it's almost 2 years ago now. It was one of the first shows we did when we came back, and I was rehearsing that. I was finishing up rehearsing that, and we were doing the Glass Menagerie. And so I played a Texan in one, and then I played the lead, Amanda Wingfield, in a Glass Menagerie, and they were two very different Southern accents, and I found one of them blending into the other. So you really need to focus on the particular character.
And also there's a lot of stuff you can get off YouTube and suggestions on what to
Absolutely.
do with the words and the syllables and so forth. We've been talking to Rosemary Knight, and she is the co-founder of the Treasure Coast Theater. The theater itself is tucked away in the Bell Shopping Center. That's the Arby's is like in the front, and
Mhm.
hotels across the street on US 1, just north of Port Saint Lucie Boulevard. And it's a great location because a lot of those places there are not open at night. So you've got that whole parking lot, for
Yes. In fact, that's absolutely true, because we're right next to Habitat for Humanity Restore, and they're closed
Mhm.
almost every time we have a show. So and then there's a nail salon too. I mean, like, there's literally no other people parking in our parking lot, in our area of the parking lot during our performances. So
But it
there's
is a
plenty of
safe,
parking.
well-lit parking lot, just for anybody who's
Absolutely.
wondering.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
it's an intimate atmosphere because it's 54 seats.
Mhm.
And you sell out a lot of your shows, so people are urged to go online and or call the box office and
Yep.
get the tickets ahead of time. The show that's running as we speak, that opened on Friday night, August 11th, and the last night of the show again is
The last performance is Sunday, August 27th.
Okay. And we have Friday night and Saturday night performances, and then we have a Sunday matinee. The Friday and Saturday night performances begin at
8 o'clock.
8, and that's what I thought. And then Sunday, is that at 2 p.m.?
Correct, yes.
Okay. So especially that matinee performance sells out very quickly. So you may want to look ahead. The show that's running August 11th is called Next to Normal. And it's got both a wonderful book story and then a terrific musical score. And you'll leave the singing those songs out loud and looking them up. It's a roller coaster of emotions. So, bring your family, bring your friends, come on out. You can get group rate tickets by checking with the theater. The phone number again, Rosemary?
Is 772-418-2439.
And the website is?
treasurecoasttheater.com.
And that's theater, T-R-E, theater.
Correct.
So you can get all that information. You can get on their mailing list if you're interested in possibly doing a show. If you are just interested in purchasing season tickets, you can get a season ticket for as few as 5 shows and still get $5 off your ticket price. The tickets are only $35, so that's a really good deal for a wonderful show. Rosemary, I appreciate you being here, being my guest. Again, the show Next to Normal runs beginning August 11th, and then tryouts for the show after Crossing Delancey. That's when are those tryouts? Likely
August 20th and the 21st. It's Sunday and Monday evening from 7 to 9.
tryout.
It's for One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Awesome. Thank you very much for joining me, and thanks for listening to the Sue Ellen Sanders Show. We're here every weekend with more information about the Treasure Coast. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.